something against the rule happen also between monks?
Girls are smuggled into here, boys are smuggled into here. You don't get anything for free in this world. There are elder monks who are having sex with the young monks.
Really?
Yes. I lived on the farm.
L'uomo alle mie spalle si chiama Charlie Kim, è australiano, ha vissuto con alcune delle tribù più incredibili della nuova Papua Guinea, lavorato per il Vaticano e ha avuto un passato che lui stesso fatica a voler raccontare. Oggi vive proprio qui, a Siem Reap in Cambogia, come monaco buddista Theravada. E grazie a lui siamo riusciti ad entrare all'interno di questo mondo e capito cosa spinge spesso un uomo a voler intraprendere un percorso simile.
Why you wanted to become a monk? Why you became a monk?
I become a monk because of my family is in a poor situation.
Poor situation?
Yes,
Okay.
because all the people in Cambodia, all the monks, 90% of their reason because of their family in a bad situation. So they become a monk because they want to help their family. I mean, if they still live with their family, their parents have to pay much money on their education. But when they become a monk, like I told you, the money is get by Buddhist people give. We don't work, we just wait for them give to support our study.
Something that I noticed is that monks must follow a lot of rules,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But for example, they cannot play football.
Yes.
They cannot practice some sports.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as a consequences, at the end, you spend a lot of time with your phone. Don't you think it's a little bit inconsistent? I mean, it's not better to let monks maybe play football, practice some sport instead of not doing anything and then spending their time on the phone?
Sport is not allowed in Buddhism. For the phone as well, it's not allowed the monk to watch. Even television is not allowed. They use the phone, it's not focused on playing game. They use it to research especially.
Do you see yourself doing this life forever, or you think it's gonna stop?
Okay. I will stop after I finish university and I can find a work to earn the money by myself. Most of us when they can find out the specific work to earn the money to their own, they will stop the life as the monk.
Le parole di St. Pors sono chiare. Per molti ragazzi cambogiani entrare in un monastero non nasce da una vocazione spirituale. In Cambogia, soprattutto in alcune aree, molte famiglie vivono ancora in condizioni di forte difficoltà economica e per molti bambini l'accesso all'istruzione resta limitato. Così, per alcuni, il monastero diventa un'opportunità, ma un'opportunità che ha un prezzo: vivere un'infanzia diversa da quella che molti di noi conoscono.
Can you tell me some rules that the monks cannot?
One, not killing.
Okay.
Yeah. Two, not drinking beer. Three, not lie.
Never lie.
Yeah, not lie. And four, not dinner.
Yeah, no dinner.
Yeah, well, the monk can eat two.
Yeah, no, I know.
Breakfast and lunch.
I know. And how long have you been monk?
5 years.
So for 5 years, you never had dinner?
Yeah.
Never?
Yeah, never. I am never.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
I cannot believe.
You cannot lie.
No,
you said it before.
No.
In the first time for me in being a monk it's very hard, you know.
Hard, yeah.
But right now it's okay.
Ma facciamo quindi un breve recap. Molti ragazzi decidono di entrare all'interno dei monasteri non tanto per spiritualità, più perché il monastero garantisce loro una casa, il cibo, la possibilità di studiare, quindi una realtà completamente diversa da quella che ci aspettavamo. Ma non è finita qui, perché in realtà durante la nostra conversazione Siem Reap ci è apparso piuttosto distaccato, fragile, cosa che in realtà abbiamo notato in tantissimi ragazzi come lui. Quindi più che figure spirituali stavamo avendo a che fare con ragazzi che probabilmente erano cresciuti in un contesto piuttosto difficile. Ed è proprio lì che ci siamo chiesti: ma cosa succede quindi quando ragazzi così giovani entrano fin da subito all'interno di un contesto chiuso come questo, come quello dei monasteri?
There are elder monks who are having sex with the young monks.
Really?
Yes.
Quelle che state per sentire sono storie e testimonianze personali che noi non abbiamo modo di verificare completamente, ma dopo il tempo passato dentro questi monasteri ci siamo resi conto che esiste una parte di questo mondo di cui si parla pochissimo, e Charlie è stata una delle poche persone disposte a raccontarcela apertamente.
I was born in South Australia, grew up on a dairy farm. My mother had gone to Papua New Guinea and she wanted me there for security, so I went to Papua New Guinea, and then I drifted slowly into making friendship with the natives, and then they invited me to live in the village. While in Papua New Guinea, I converted to the Catholic Church. I received a scholarship to study in Vatican. My good bishop had to return to Australia because of bad health. They got a new bishop, a crazy Italian bishop, and the Australian priest stabbed me in the back, and the bishop called me in and just said God did not want me in his church. I was not born Catholic. There's discrimination in the church on conversion, and I was rejected for ordination, so I came to Cambodia.
How did you change your mind, like the passage between being a priest and being a monk, because they are two different religions? Why you wanted to make this switch?
I had a desire then to become a monk. I met a university student from Thailand, and he told me he was a Buddhist. And I said, "What's Buddhist? I don't know Buddhist." He said, "When you can, go to a library and look for Buddha." And from what I read, I liked deeply. Buddha teaches that we care for the poor, the sick, the old.
Don't you think that also Catholic Church teaches the same?
Yes, but the Catholic Church stabbed me in the back.
Più tempo passavamo con Charlie, più avevamo la sensazione che vedesse quel mondo in modo molto diverso dagli altri monaci. Poi, dopo ore passate a parlare insieme, ha iniziato davvero ad aprirsi con noi, e da quel momento la conversazione ha preso una piega completamente diversa.
Something against the rule happened also between monks, like drugs, like pedophilia, stuff
Yes,
can happen.
girls are smuggled into here, boys are smuggled into here. We have temple boys, they live here but they're not monks. Monks are sending out temple boys to wedding parties to bring back beer, to bring back drugs, and to bring back girls. There is an app on Facebook or wherever the apps are. There's an app called Grindr, an app for gay boys,
Okay,
and there are monks in there.
okay.
But there was a monk from the next city down in full robes advertising. So I wrote to him and I said, "Brother, what are you doing? You're a monk and you are in full robes. You're an idiot to do that." And I've seen monks in Thailand, 2 or 3 monks, full photograph, kissing. I've been in temples around the country sitting there talking to monks, and a monk walked past. He looked about 18 and silly smile on his face as he walked past, and I was with a group of 4 or 5 monks and they all just pointed at him and said, "Oh, lady monk."
Oh.
They call them lady monks. There are elder monks who are having sex with the young monks.
Really?
Yes. I don't know if I knew of two monks here. They were probably 14, 15, 16 years old, and they would walk around together with their arms around each other or arms around the
Maybe because they are friends?
Yes. I think they were a gay couple.
Oh. But my question is, why they don't give up the monks' lifestyle, living as let me say, normal people? If they like each other, they want to be gay, and why they continue to be monks then? What's the interest?
You have free clothing, free accommodation, free food, and a lot of other benefits. Free medical. There's a lot of advantages that way. That would be one reason. So mature monks, over 20 years old, they get a connection, a partner who will care for them, look after them.
And then in this case,
And then
they quit, maybe.
They quit.
Okay.
It's wrong, illegal, wrong, against Buddhist rules for a monk. Monk is not to have any form of sex. We're not allowed to play with our body, put it like that.
I would like to ask you this, Charlie. What is the worst thing you've ever seen in Buddhism world? The worst thing?
I had one good friend, crazy friend,
Buddhist? Monk?
I was living in the big building on the ground floor, and his room was opposite my room. I took him to Australia for my mother's funeral. I took him to Thailand twice because he spoke Thai. But he had a very, very bad temper.
Like, for example?
He would physically fight smaller monks.
Oh.
In the temple.
In the temple.
As well as outside. If they said something silly or rude, he was offended, boom, he bashed them.
Non sappiamo se tutto quello che ci ha raccontato Charlie fosse vero, e probabilmente non avremo mai gli strumenti per capirlo fino in fondo. Quello che sappiamo però è che il mondo che abbiamo trovato qui era molto diverso da quello che ci aspettavamo prima di partire. La spiritualità quasi mistica che immaginavamo molto spesso lasciava spazio a qualcosa di molto più umano, fragile, contraddittorio, a volte persino difficile da decifrare. Eppure, proprio dentro questa complessità, questo sistema continua a funzionare. Per molti giovani rappresenta ancora una possibilità concreta, un'educazione, una struttura e in alcuni casi un futuro che fuori da qui non avrebbero.
The last question I would like to ask you, it's what is your biggest dream in life?
Yes. My biggest dream in my life is to support my family and my society and my country as well by bringing my knowledge to the world. The special one is to make my family proud of me. So I follow all of what they told to me, what they said to me. I follow them, especially for my family. So the biggest dream is I want to make my family proud. They feel proud of me as their children in society as well. I make my society proud of me as a citizen. Yes.